Welcome, everyone. I'm John Dye, and I'm here today with Joel Staley. Joel is somebody that I've wanted to have on for some time, and he made some time today, and I'm grateful for that. Today, we are with Joel on Mentorship Mike, which is the edition that we're putting out today for Faith and Media Initiative, which is basically helping to build the next generation of faith-filled media creators. We believe faith belongs in media. We need more faith fluency and faith friendliness in media. So we'll discuss that a little bit today, but also talk about Joel and his journey as he's done quite a bit in the industry. Let's actually read your bio first here, Joel, and we'll
Sure.
start from there. Joel Staley is a multilingual communications leader with more than 25 years of experience in media relations, crisis communications, and brand strategy. He has trained C-suite executives, government leaders, and celebrities for high-stakes interviews and founded JCS Communications in Orlando, Florida. His work spans Disney, global PR firms, and award-winning public service campaigns. Joel, welcome to Mentorship Mike.
Well, thank you, John. Appreciate you having me on.
You bet. It's been great to be with you. We got to know each other a little bit beforehand. I know you enjoy tennis. Tell us
I
a little bit
do.
more about your tennis exploits and things you enjoy doing. It sounds like you get involved, but you enjoy watching as well.
I do. So I'm from Florida, and there's some things that we do well here in Florida. Voting and staying out of the news for dumb reasons. No, we're not so good at that. But boy, do we do water sports and tennis and golf really well. So for me, I started playing when I was a kid. I was 12 at the invitation of my father, and just have enjoyed it always. And so I play in a local league, and I love watching it on TV. Just finished watching Wimbledon, which was incredibly exciting. So yeah, I love tennis.
Incredible. Now I've got to ask because pickleball seems to be all the rage here where I'm at in
Oh,
Utah.
you said the P word. Oh boy.
Is that a thing, or you never the twain shall meet? If you play tennis, you don't play pickleball.
I can't speak for everybody, but I'm a little bit of a snob, a tennis snob. So I get invitations to play pickleball, and I usually say something to the effect of, "Well, I can still run, so no, thank you."
Yes, I don't just have to pivot at the torso, right? Yeah,
Right.
I love it. I love it. Well, good. Good, Joel. Well, let's jump right in. You have had a career that spans 2+ decades, right? In public
Yeah.
relations, media relations, etc. So, talk about what first drew you into that work and why you were drawn into that work because a lot of our audience will be younger people
Okay.
considering what they want to do at this juncture in their life.
That's a great question. I made it to university, and I still didn't really have it sorted out what my major was going to be, what I wanted to do. And I was thinking, well, maybe I'll go into law like my dad. So I started looking for a major that would help me learn to write well. And somebody suggested public relations. I gave it a superficial review and thought, yeah, that looks good. And so I started taking public relations classes, and then I realized, oh my gosh, public relations at its core is why do people do the things they do,
Mm.
and how can I influence that process? And when I had that moment, I said, I don't want to be a lawyer. This is what I want to do. This is the question I've been asking since I was old enough to ask questions. Well, why did
Yeah.
they do that? What in their background led them to choose or prefer that? And why did they dislike this other thing? And oh my gosh, for me, I found where I needed to be. And so that's how I chose to pursue public relations. So I finished and got a degree from Brigham Young University, public relations. Did an internship at Disney, and then started working in the agency world. Um, so hopefully that answers your question about how I got into PR.
Yes, wonderful. And I'm trying to channel every student that will listen to this. Talk about your time at Disney. What are some
Yeah,
of the biggest lessons you learned there? I mean, we hear about the world-class service and the
sure.
friendliness and all that. Help us understand what that was like for you.
Yeah, well, I've had an on again, off again affair with Disney. So when I was in between semesters of school, I did the college program. Some of your listeners may have heard of that or may have even done it. Basically, you go and work at Disney for a semester, and they pay you minimum wage.
Yeah. Yes.
But you learn a lot. You learn a lot about those things that you just talked about. Excellent customer service, guest service. You learn about Disney and its brand and what drives its brand and why it's so valuable to them. And so I did that, and then I returned later and did a professional internship with them in their public relations department in Orlando. I'm from Florida, right? So loved it, had a great time. They extended me for a few months here or there for projects and things. But after that, I needed to move on. They had all the money and all the talent in the world. They were going to hire an intern, right? But I looked at the people who were there and who were working in a place where I wanted to be, and I kind of figured out, okay, they worked at Disney in the past too, but they went away and got great experience and then returned, and then they were seen as more valuable in Disney's eyes. So, at least in the corporate side of things. So I said, that's what I need to do. So that's when I ventured into the agency world, and then a few years later, I did come back and got a job as a PR director for Disney. And what I learned about Disney is that they understand maybe better than anyone the power of emotional connections. When you go to their theme parks and you experience that brand and those characters that maybe you've only seen on television or film screen, their customer service is organized in such a way that they really connect with you. They really create these magic moments, these magical moments, these emotional moments, and those stick with you. And they've learned that people who experience emotional connection with brands are 3 times as likely to purchase again or to return. Not only that, they're 3 times as likely to refer or recommend that brand to others. And so that's a huge part of their magic engine, if you will. And they bank on that heavily.
Yeah, they do. They do. Well said. Um, let's return to maybe, your formative years. Could have
Sure.
been at BYU or early on in your career. Talk about a mentor or two,
Yeah.
because a lot of the young people listening to this will be looking for mentors, right? People that can help them
Yeah.
as they come into the field. Who influenced you and why? What did they exhibit?
I've had a lot of really good mentors. And, you know, early in my career, I learned that you can get paid in one of 2 ways. You can get paid in money, which everybody's going to get paid something, um, or you can maybe be patient with the money and get paid in experience. And at the early part of your career, I would say getting paid in experience is really important, as important as the money. Don't give up experience. Don't give up skills that you might learn just so you can make a few more bucks in that moment, right? And so I did that. I was at an agency and I felt like a widget maker in an assembly line, and I just didn't feel like I was growing and developing. And so I took another job, and this was with a smaller boutique agency. I wore a lot of hats, and I got to do a lot of things that somebody with my inexperience never should have been doing. But that's what I needed. And
Yeah.
this is where I met one of my first great mentors, and somebody who's still a mentor to me, someone I still do projects with. And so this particular person owned this agency, and she was fantastic. She put me in way over my head and was very, very, very impatient with me as I learned through mistakes. And she allowed me to make mistakes. I think mistakes are great because there's some pain associated with them, and there's an urgency to not repeat. So there's an urgency to learn, and they really do help you move more quickly through that learning curve. So grateful for her for her patience, grateful that she allowed me to make mistakes, grateful for her trust, and grateful that that trust meant she let me do a huge variety of things. And that was critical at that point in my career, that early point in my career.
Yeah, great testimony on what a good mentor is. Yes, somebody who gives you enough lead rope, but they're there to help when needed. But you get to test your own skill set to some extent. Yeah, I love that.
Indeed, yeah.
Joel, help me understand this, because a lot of the students that may be listening to this are in journalism.
Okay. Yeah.
You're kind of working, sometimes I call it the opposite side of the table, pitching to journalists.
Yeah.
What would you say for somebody that's looking to go into journalism, they should know about people in the PR field and
Hmm.
vice versa? If somebody's going into the PR field, what should they know about journalists?
Well, I started learning about journalism in school. So we had to take a journalism class, journalism writing class. Had to write for uh, the Daily Universe, which is the student paper, which is no joke. I mean, it has about
Yeah.
25 to 30,000 circulation. So, and it operates just like a real newspaper. So I was grateful for that experience. And I've done freelance writing over the years too. I've had things published in local lifestyle publications, and I've even had a piece published in Men's Journal, which is a national publication. So that perspective has really helped me in my career, knowing something of the journalism side of things. Now, if you're going into journalism, what to know about PR people? I would say PR people, you might get the impression from others in journalism that, oh my gosh, the bane of my existence, those PR people, they're so annoying. They're always calling. They want to know if we'll do this or we'll do that, and that's
Yes.
true. There are plenty of PR people who practice at less than the best level and probably cause that type of consternation. But what I would say is that if they can be patient enough to weed out those types of folks and find those PR people who really understand journalism and deliver value, that can be they can end up being great sources for the journalist and providing great news for them. Um, Myself, I always try to conduct myself and I always try to share content with journalists in a way that they say, oh, an email or a text or a voicemail from Joel. He's always got good stuff. I wonder what he has for me this time. And that's my reputation. And I work very hard to carefully maintain it at that level because it's what allows me to be successful for my clients.
Yeah, that's great. Well said. Well said. Um, Let me know if you think this is true. Creating a professional relationship, so you know what those writers, those journalists are writing about,
Hmm.
actually having some background on their beat, their topics of interest, etc. That's
Yeah.
important as well, right? So that you pitch appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the best pitching is done when you have actually read what that journalist has been writing over time and you have done your homework since you have come to understand their audience and what their
Yes.
audience needs are. That way, the content that you serve up to them is aligned with that. Because if it's
Yeah.
not, they can't use it. They're going to tell you go buy an ad or go buy some an internet banner or whatever you want to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
or go tell about it on your social channels. But we're doing
Yeah.
the news here, buddy. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Um, Since we are talking about faith and media to some extent today, I would just love to know your thoughts on what that looks like from your perspective today. How how do faith and media mix? Is faith represented well? Is it represented enough? Is it represented accurately? Not saying that
okay.
individuals necessarily have a bone to pick per se, but do, do you think, I would just love to know your thoughts on faith and media.
Yeah. So I would say if you're not hearing enough about faith, or you don't feel like faith is being given um, fair treatment, I would say consider what your news sources are, because in today's day and age, there is a broad variety of news sources out there. And I don't mean to just turn your life into an echo chamber, but there are plenty of sources of news that do that take a broad enough view of things that they do incorporate faith into what they report on, and they do acknowledge that that's important because, like any good journalist, they know their readers or they know their viewers, and they make sure that the content that they deliver is useful and helpful to their readers and viewers. And so, yeah, you might be hitting a dead end with some sources. That's okay. Broaden your horizons and find others that can supplement your news in a way that doesn't, incorporate faith. And I would also say, in terms of your personal practices, faith is really important. Somebody gives me a news story, and I have to believe. I have to look at it, review it, and kind of just say, I think I can see some news in this. And then I have to have enough faith to develop that and put it out there without having the results in hand. I have to have faith and go and work hard, and then the results come. And if you don't mind me saying, I trust that God helps me in those moments too. I think about the parable of the loaves and the fishes, and they came to Christ with, if I get my math right, with 5 loaves and 2 fishes on one particular occasion, and that was enough. He fed the 5,000. So I think to myself, I'm going to do the best that I possibly can. I'm going to study. I'm going to use my abilities, God-given abilities, and I'm going to look at this situation and offer the best judgment and the best counsel that I can. And then I'm going to work really hard, and hopefully God can turn my meager offering of loaves and fishes into something miraculous, and He often does.
Yeah, well said, Joel. One thing that's interested me, as you've had 2+ decades behind you in this effort.
Right.
There's been so many platforms, and you've seen so many evolutions, right? You've worked with press,
Yeah.
with broadcast, with social media, with digital, internal
Yeah.
comms, I'm sure even more than that. But how has maybe spanning that shaped your taste as a strategist and maybe as a
Yeah.
coach? How do you see those, playing with one another and interfacing with
Right.
one another?
Well, that's a great question. When I was in school, I remember one of my professors putting up on a screen, on a projection screen, his desktop, and he said, "Oh, look at this. Have you guys ever heard of email?" And we're like, "Well, I don't know, maybe." And he showed him receiving and sending an email to another professor that was across campus, and that just blew my mind. I didn't know about email. I'd never heard. This was in the early '90s, so I was like, "Wow." So, and then now today, I can remember at a particular agency I was working for, we were trying to find a way to reach a youthful audience. And one of our interns came up to us and said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this thing called Facebook?" And we're like, "No, what's that?" And it was only
Tell
for
me
college,
more.
only college
Yeah.
campuses. You had to have a university email address in order to participate. And so we looked at that. We used that for a campaign, and we felt like we were pretty successful and pretty innovative for having used it to reach young people. So I've seen social media come to rise and develop and be used. I've seen how social media and the internet have really altered the news industry. You talk about newspapers with journalists that were dedicated to one or two beats. They had that luxury because they had huge staffs, and they had plenty of people to go around. Now each journalist doesn't cover a beat per se; they cover a geography, and they got to cover everything that happens in that geography, and so that's changed dramatically. So I would say, in terms of how does that affect your practice, one is make sure that you stay up to date on all of these things and that you're aware of them. Your clients look to you as a media expert. You need to be able to help them and update them and inform them. Also, all of that information should inform you and how you approach and how you can be most successful in helping introduce your clients' stories to the news media in effective and interesting ways. And how all those things can work well together. I mean, maybe you get a great story published on some wonderful online news outlet, and you can't let it rest there, and so you push it through social media to even more eyeballs, and then you use it again as you reference it in a blog post on your on your own, anyway, on and on and on. So understand how all of that works together, and staying up to date. Keep being a great source of expert information for your clients, and making sure that you always adjust your strategy. And then finally, I would say this: so many people say, "Oh, we've got to have a social media strategy. Oh my gosh, we need a whatever it is." And those aren't strategies; those are tactics. Your strategy is, what's my story, and what are my messages, and how is that going to resonate with my audience? And once that's in place, all of the channels that you use, those are the tactics that you use to get the story to the right people. And so sometimes I try to help people. I'm like, "Hey, cool your jets. Let's go back to square one, and let's make sure our story's straight, and then we'll be ready to tactically push it out."
Yes. Distribution channels are not strategic, right? They are to help with that. But very well said. Very well said. Okay, Joel, I want to do this. I call this the mentorship micro musings. Okay,
Oh
meaning
boy.
you've got 15 to 30 seconds, quick round, speed round for
Oh
us.
gosh.
And
I hope I don't
you
give too
just
many telling Freudian responses here. Jeez.
yeah. Print interview or live broadcast? Which do you prefer?
Live broadcast is more fun.
Okay. Okay. Proactive campaign or crisis response?
I like them both, but I get more of an adrenaline rush from the crisis.
Yeah. One word that describes your working style.
Strategic. That's
Strategic.
boring, but that,
Yeah.
chess
Yeah.
over checkers.
Yes. 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 Clarity or control? Which matters more in a crisis?
Clarity.
Okay. Can you think of a client that changed how you see crisis communications? Is there an example? Take more than 15 to 30 seconds on this if you need, but if there's a story and context behind it. But yeah, share with
Yeah,
us something.
sure. So, I was working for a large agency, and we did a vulnerabilities assessment, a deep dive on a client, because they had been getting some negative press, and we said, we're worried about this. We see a trend, and we took a look at some demographics. We took a look at some news trends, not necessarily theirs, but trends in terms of what news was covering. We said we see you as being vulnerable for kind of an expose based on your business and your clients. We're worried about you. We think we should do some of these types of PR tactics to try to shore up those vulnerabilities and inoculate you against something happening. They yawned and said no thanks. And then literally within a month, the worst phone call a PR guy could get. Hello, I'm a producer from 60 Minutes and I'd like to do a story on your client. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there's a lot of details that I'm going to leave out here. But
Yeah.
what I learned from that was that the producer, I learned how important social media was in these instances. The producer was going around and finding his targets through social media. Whoever had put
Oh,
the client's name in their LinkedIn profile, that's how he found them. And he was trying to get them he was trying to dig dirt on the company. So that was really
yes.
important. The other thing that I learned is that 60 Minutes is not journalism. 60 Minutes is about good TV and what
Ah,
sells. And they don't care about journalism, not really. And
yeah.
so, as we broke that down for them, that was really difficult for the client to understand. And so, before we were going to get anywhere with the client, we had to align and both agree that this was not a news story because the client kept saying, we've got nothing to hide. We'll just tell them. We'll just tell them
Yeah.
everything that's going on. So it'll be fine. And we're like, no, you don't understand. They've already selected you and made you the bad guy. And they
Yeah.
already have other good guys. They're not going to change their mind. You're
Yeah.
still the
Their
bad guy.
story is their story with whether you're involved or not, right? Yeah.
They've found a story that they think sells, that they think is going to make good TV. And they've already put the black hat on you. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we couldn't convince the client of that until we said, look, we'll let you do any interviews you want to do. But first, you have to allow us to recreate a 60 minutes interview for you in one of your conference rooms. You got to give us an hour. Leave your phones outside, and we own you for an hour. And then you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And we recreated it. We brought somebody in who could play the role of tough reporter. They were knee to knee, hot lights, terrible questions. And not only that, but we recorded the entire interview. And afterwards, with the help of one of our on-staff writers, turned it into a 60-minute segment. And we said, based on what you gave us, this is what we think 60 Minutes would do with your interview.
Yeah.
Ta-da! We showed it. And their eyes got as big as dinner saucers or, dinner plates. And they were just like, yeah, we
Yeah.
don't need to do the interview. So sometimes helping people, get on the same page with you means making a little extra effort. And once they understood
Yeah.
what the end result was really going to be and what the arena they were really stepping into was, then we could work together. So that was really helpful. I say, so the power of social media, the ability to be aligned with your clients and some of the efforts you have to make to do that, and the fact that you have to choose outlets that will allow you to tell your story.
Mm.
And if not, maybe it's fine just to send an email, a written statement, and be done with it. Because if they're not going to give you a chance to tell your story, then it doesn't make it's a waste of your time. It's just going to make you look bad.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Joel, what's a moment where you thought, this is why I do this work? What's been fulfilling?
Oh man, a, actually a lot of moments, a lot of them. Um, so I can think of two, and I'll see if I can be succinct enough to share them both. The first one was years ago. I was representing the Mexico Tourism Board, and I was working with um, the Secretary of Tourism for the country of Mexico. That's a cabinet level position, and so uh, we were doing a tour of Canada and some cities in North America. And anyway, as part of that, she got a request from an anchor from Univision. His name is Jorge Ramos, and he essentially is the 60 Minutes of Spanish language TV. He's revered and he's tough as nails. And so I was able to sit with her and conduct a media training session with her in Spanish to help her get ready for this huge, huge interview. I accompanied her to the interview and watched her perform flawlessly in that interview and was just thrilled. And that was a moment for me where I thought, yeah, this is why I'm in PR. This is great.
Yeah, yeah.
So exciting, exciting stuff. And then the other moment was I got to reunite with my mentor for a project. In this project, we represented an organization that promotes boating safety. And as we were looking at an opportunity, the client said, "Hey, we're funded by the Coast Guard, and we've already told them that our goal is to generate 60 million media impressions, right?" And so we said, "Okay, that sounds great. We think we can do that with what we've got going on here." And this is right as this is COVID. The COVID had just begun the previous year, and so I warned them. I said, "Look, you've got people were buying boats like crazy." I said, I felt good about this because my contribution was to recognize a trend and to propose some strategy. I said, you're going to have so many new boaters who are buying boats for the first time because they're doing this as a healthy family, safe activity. They can't do anything else. They can't do that big wedding, destination wedding. They can't go on their European vacation. They can't spend money in a lot of ways that they wanted to. So they're channeling this money into buying a boat. And they don't have any boating experience. And guess what? A lot of the safety training isn't online.
Mm.
So they're not getting safety training.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah.
bad mix. And every year the Coast Guard puts out a report that says, here are the number of incidents that happened this past year, here are the number of injuries, here are the number of deaths. And the media doesn't cover boating much until that report comes out. And so I said, they're going to get a hold of that report. And I know the numbers are going to be up. And boating's going to look bad. We have to get ahead of that. And so I proposed that we jump ahead of that and say, hey, we are the organization that owns safety for boating. And we're going to provide to you great experts who can speak to this subject. By the way, we see this trend coming, and we're going to give you, so that you can share with your viewers who are boaters, the safety tips they need to avoid becoming a statistic. And it sold like hotcakes. We got ahead of the curve. We were able to control the narrative, and we were able to push a safety message out there. And we didn't get just 60 million impressions. We generated 600 million impressions.
Wow.
Now those weren't unique because obviously there's only 330 million people in the whole United States. But that's not bad because we were hitting the target audience more than once.
Multiple times, yeah.
Yeah. So that was a thrilling moment for me too, and I really loved being somebody that helped the client in need in a moment of need. So that was
Incredible.
Those are the moments that I cherish as a PR pro.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, two more questions. I think that'll round it out. But the first one is this. I'll give them both to you now and let you roll into it as you see fit.
Okay.
Looking ahead into the crystal ball, right? Looking ahead maybe 10 years. In media training, crisis communication, the media ecosystem in general, how will that change, Joel, in your estimation? What will change? What will maybe remain the same? And
Yeah.
then the second question is this. Again, knowing our audience, young people probably
Yeah.
moving into public relations or journalism, um, what general advice would you give to those individuals moving
Right.
into this space, which is constantly changing and evolving, and we've seen that happen, over the last 2 or 3 decades for sure. But that change is probably even going to move much more quickly with AI and other things that are on the horizon. But what would you suggest to them? How would you suggest they enter their career, and how do they keep their faith tradition and what they're doing kind of in sync? What has worked for you that way to make sure that you didn't
Yeah.
have to abandon, yeah, your religious rites and rituals and your faith, what it means to you,
Yeah.
to do something that, like you said earlier when we were talking one on one, took sometimes 70 to 80-hour weeks. So maybe
Good.
address those two things, the crystal ball and then general advice for the young people entering this industry.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Please don't look disappointed, but I don't have a crystal ball. Um, but I can tell you what I see now, and if it keeps going in this direction, maybe that helps. So, AI is an extraordinary tool, and it is going to make it very, very difficult, and it already is making it difficult to distinguish between authentic content and that which has been contrived. Um, and so I think that puts, you're going to laugh. And I think people will probably go, Joel, you're so wrong. Because, they're like, everything's going to go digital, everything's going to be just made. And I think that's going to put a premium on things that are handcrafted because those are going to become rare. I mean, why are gold and diamonds valuable? Because they're rare. Yeah. So um, I think as you represent your clients, think about Disney. Think about Disney. Disney has very deep relationships with consumers because those consumers don't just watch their videos and don't just use their toys and don't just see movies, etc. They actually go to their theme parks where they interact one on one with those beloved characters and with those stories. They have a one on one personal experience with that brand. And Disney's measured this carefully, which translates into much greater expenditures in terms of the consumer goods that they purchase. So take your cue from Disney. As you help build brands, which you will be in public relations, whatever they say, that is what you're doing. And look for opportunities to bypass that, whether it was AI or whether it was fake or whether it was real, and get people to have one-on-one in-person experiences if you can. And I think that's going to turn them into great brand ambassadors for you, for your company, for your organization. So that advice, I think, is true now, and I think it'll continue to hold true and maybe even become more valuable in the future.
Mm.
Now, if I remember your second question, which is, how do you continue to maintain your faith in that kind of an environment? I think mutual respect. If you give people the space to do the things that they feel are right and good, and you respect their choices, I guess it's you respect their right to choose. You may not respect their choice, but
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
respect that's their choice, and then they had the right to do that. And you remain civil and kind and helpful and compassionate unconditionally, then that oftentimes will buy you the space you need to
Mm.
worship in the way that you feel is important.
Yeah.
Um, and we can, what does St. Francis of Assisi say, or at least he's attributed with having said this, that we should preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words.
Use words, yes.
Which the left-handed implication there is that the most important thing is our example. So you don't necessarily have to be pounding from a pulpit to live your faith. You should be doing it in every action you take every day of your life.
Yeah, well said. Joel, thank you. So great spending this
Yeah,
last 30
it was
plus
fun.
minutes with you. Great, a deep well of wisdom resides in you, and you just share
Flattery.
it with
Thank
with
you.
the young students. We sure appreciate that. But thank you so much, and we may have you on again. We may have a sequel to this sometime in the future. So stay handy, if you will.
I will. We talked about tennis this time. Maybe we can talk about my other favorite sport, surfing, next time.
Oh, wonderful. All right. All right. That's great. We'll do it. Joel, thanks again. Good to see you.